Okay, so today I'm going to show you how I can. We're going to do some canning of some loquat fruit. So in these bags, I've got 2 big bags here of loquat fruit. These are, let me find a good one. These are from our neighbor's tree. They're a Japanese plum, and they come in clusters like that. They've got leaves on them. I lost some. We picked these yesterday. Cody climbed way up into the tree and he cut them down. So I'm gonna can.
Yeah, I had to go a little bit smaller.
Cody's getting fruit down from the tippy top of the tree.
Hold on. You got it, right?
What are you doing, James? What are you doing?
Yeah, I start to have time. I root my plant. Come look.
I have 2 bags of them. The best way to save them is to can them. I'm gonna pit them first. They have seeds in them. I'm gonna take all the seeds out and then can them in sugar water. So for canning, today I'm doing a water bath canning, which means I'm not using a pressure cooker. I'm using just a stock pot and a lid. Okay, that's it. You can can fruit, tomatoes, anything that's really acidic. If you're doing pickles because you're putting vinegar in it, you can can in a water bath canner. Anything else like green beans, potatoes, asparagus, carrots, unless you're pickling them and putting vinegar in it, you really can't do those in a water bath canner because it's not safe. You need to use a pressure canner, which I'll do in another video. So today we're just doing the water bath canner. It's the easiest. You can make jams and jellies and water bath can the jams and jellies. I have some blackberries I picked yesterday. I'm going to do a video on some different ways that you can use and can blackberries later. So what you'll need for what I'm doing, you can do this with any fruit, just canning it in sugar water in a simple syrup. You need jars with lids and rings. You can I'm using a quart jar because James eats these, what he calls special fruit, like all the time. So if I open a jar, it's not going to go bad before he eats it. If it's something that you think you're going to use maybe a smaller amount of, you can use a pint jar. I'm going to go ahead and prepare one of them at least so that I have one in case I have like an odd amount of fruit and it doesn't quite fill up a quart jar. I can use a smaller jar and not feel like I'm wasting space in my jars. So you need that. You need a big stock pot. Obviously you need water. And then you're going to need sugar. You also, for pitted fruit, you need a few bowls. It's easiest if you just kind of set up an assembly line for yourself. I save the seeds and kind of like the insides to give to the pigs so we're not wasting anything. So you need a few bowls. And then a strainer to wash whatever your fruit is. Make sure you wash it really, really well. So I'm going to start by filling up my pot with some water because this is a pretty large pot and it's going to take quite a long time for the water to boil, so that's always the first thing that I do. I'm also going to fill up this little pot to prepare my lids. When you're canning, you have to make sure that everything is very sterilized, so the lids need to be boiled, and the rings, I just go ahead and boil the rings too, just because. And then the jars need to be baked in the oven. Just gonna stick this on the stove, and I'm just gonna bring it to a boil, and then I'll stick my lids and my rings in the pot. The jars, there's a lot of different ways you can do the jars to sterilize them. You can put them in the bath canner and boil them, but it requires waiting for the water to warm up, and I don't really like to wait, so I'm gonna put them on a baking sheet tray and put them in the oven. You can also use the sanitized setting on your dishwasher if you have that. And I'm gonna go ahead and get these in the oven. That's the fun part. This is gonna take me a while because I have a lot of fruit. So now I have to prep the fruit, which means first I have to de-stem all of the fruit and pick out any of the yucky ones. They came from way up in the tree, so there are some that are like kind of nasty. If I can save it, I'll save it and use about half, but the rest will just go to the pigs. Okay, so as you can see, all I've done is remove the stems. I still have to remove the seeds. My water is boiling for my lids, so I'm going to go ahead and just drop my lids. So my lids are nice and clean and sterilized. I'm just going to drop them in the water. So my pot is boiling, and I'm just dropping my lids in. And I'm just going to boil my lids for about 5 minutes. Okay, so now I'm gonna wash the fruit for the first time. So this bowl is going to the pigs. They're gonna love it. It's gonna be a nice treat for them. And I'm gonna go ahead and wash this bowl. I have a whole nother bag of these. So I'm gonna do this batch first and then do the second batch. And now I'm gonna pit them. This takes the longest amount of time. So for these, so these are native to Asia. They're Asian pears. They're grown a lot in Australia as well. When I was looking up some recipes for them, I found a lot of Australian blogs. You can make marmalade with them. You can make jam with them. Maybe I'll do that in another video. It's really good on toast or with yogurt. We make our own homemade yogurt, so having something to flavor it with is really good. But they're very sweet. Some of them are sour. When they're nice and orange like this, they're much more sweet than if they're a little bit more green or yellow like this one. But either way, James likes them, and canning them in the sugar water makes them sweet. So I'm going to use my middle bowl for the insides, and I'm going to use this bowl for what I have left. So all I'm doing for these, the quickest way that I've found to do it is I'm pinching off the bottom, and then I'm squeezing out the seeds. And if there are any seeds that don't come out, then I'll stick my finger in there and pull. Most of the time I can get all the seeds out just by squeezing. And again, you can do this with any fruit you want. Any fruit that you would think about that comes in a can. So if you have peaches, if you have apples, if you have pears, anything that you want to can, you can can this way. I had a friend that I taught how to can come over a few weeks ago, and she doesn't have space for a garden. Of course, I advocate for growing your own stuff, but she doesn't have space for a garden, really. So I told her that if she wants to can, another really good way to utilize canning is to buy fruit and vegetables in season and then can them. So think about, right now it's April, so think about what fruits and vegetables are in season. Strawberries are in season right now, so you could go get strawberries, because when fruits and vegetables are in season, you're paying less for them. So it's a really good way to use what's available, even if you don't have space or time to grow them yourself. Now, I didn't grow these myself. I got these from my neighbor's garden because she's awesome. 5 minutes. So I'm going to take these out. I'm not going to touch them with my fingers, and I'm going to put them on a paper towel so they have space to dry. Okay, so I want 4 parts water, 1 part sugar. So I'm gonna do 4 cups and 1 cup. So I have 4 cups of water. And here's my sugar. I'm gonna do 1 cup of sugar. I'm gonna put this back on the stove, bring it to a boil. All I'm trying to do when I'm making this syrup is I'm just trying to make sure that the sugar is dissolved. That's it. And then we go back. It's a very messy business, canning is. So now my simple syrup is about ready. My fruit is ready. I'm gonna go ahead and just wash the fruit again. There's a lot of pollen on it and little black things, so I'm just gonna wash it one more time. Now we're ready to fill our jars. So another optional canning tool that would be very helpful, but don't necessarily need, is a funnel. We're gonna need this to put it in and out of the water. The funnel, let's say my jars are cool, is going to make it so that you make minimal mess on the jar when you're filling it. So now we're ready to fill. So we're ready for the funnel. Okay, so when I fill these, I'm just filling them with fruit. I'm packing as much fruit in there as I can possibly get. So these are all things that I did not grow up learning how to do. In the other video when I showed you the farm, and I was out on the back porch and I showed you where we did our tomato plants last year, I taught myself, using those 6 tomato plants, how to make tomato sauce and diced tomatoes. And I picked blackberries last year and taught myself how to make jam, all using the internet and video tutorials and Pinterest and all that stuff. I taught myself how to do it. So this is not something that you have to grow up doing, and you don't have to be 80 years old to be able to do it. I'm gonna use a ladle because I'm gonna make a mess if I pour it. So I filled it with fruit, pushed it in there as tightly as I could pack it. Now I'm just filling it with the sugar water. You have to leave what's called headspace, which means space at the top of the jar. For this fruit, there are no guidelines online that I could find on canning this fruit anywhere. Nowhere. So what I'm going off of is I'm going off of apricots. Those are the closest thing to this fruit that I could find online on how to do. So I'm leaving about, this is pretty handy. It has a measure on it, so you can measure how big your headspace is. So I'm doing about a 1-inch headspace. When you fill your jar, another really important thing, especially when you're doing whole fruits versus jams, it's not as big of a deal, is you want to get the bubbles out. So if you can see the bubbles coming to the top when I start to press this in here, because all of those pits of the fruit are open and the water has to go in there and fill it. You want to make sure you do that, because if it's not in there, it's not preserving the insides of the fruit. Okay, so now that I've done that, my headspace has gone down because the water has filled in the holes. So I'm gonna add just a little bit more of my simple syrup. And I'm gonna remeasure my headspace. And I'm at about 1 inch. Now, I need my magnetic tool that I seem to have misplaced. Here it is. And I'm gonna put the lids on my jars. You wanna make sure the lid is nice and dry and the rim is nice and dry. So we're gonna take a paper towel and wipe it down. And then we're going to secure it with a ring. So we're going to go ahead and put the ring on there. And now this jar is ready to go in the water bath canner. So I'm going to set it over here, and it's going to wait until I have more jars that are ready to go. Okay, so obviously I have a ton more fruit to process, so I'm gonna wait on that, and I'm just gonna show you how to go ahead and process the jars, and I will do that when we are finished. So, my water's boiling. Turn this so you can see. You wanna come set me up so you can see a little better? Okay, so as you can see, the water's boiling. So I'm gonna take these guys and I'm just gonna drop them in the pot. And most water bath canners will fit 6 of these large jars. I wanna make sure that the water is over the lid, which it is. That's the most important thing, is that it's over the lid. Okay, woo, close to the top. Now we wanna make sure that we know how long these are going in for. So, this needs to be boiling for 30 minutes because they're larger jars and it's whole fruit. You can look up on the USDA's website how long to boil each different kind of thing you're canning, whether it's jam, jelly, and what kind of jar it's in. Okay? And these will be ready in about a half an hour. That's it.
Done with the video?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is the finished product. This is what you'll get when you're all finished. I just write the date on the top of the lid since the lid's going in the trash. Make sure you're labeling these. If you can a lot of stuff, you're gonna have it sitting in the pantry for a long time, and you wanna make sure you know when you canned it so you know how long it's good for. Most things are good for about a year. So these are all the Loquats we've canned so far this year. These are some of the other things I've canned: jams, jellies, applesauce. I'll do some of those in another video. But that's your finished product. Now we're gonna go take the stuff out to the pigs. So another benefit of doing this, the seeds, potentially they could grow a tree, and then the pigs in their pen have a tree with fruit on it that they can snack on. So if you liked that and you want more homesteader tips on canning, growing, raising animals, like our page, subscribe, comment, tell us what you want to see, what videos you want us to make, and we'll share. Thanks.